you know, make some changes coming into this one, expecting to face off against at least one Symmetra-heavy team there in either OWCS or Twisted Minds. So I'm sure they prepared something for us. I'm excited either way. This one is for, of course, the last slot in the grand finals in order to go up against OWCS. We're patiently waiting. And on the mics for the big game, we of course have Mitch and Matt. Please take it away, guys.
Thank you very much. So a big game indeed. While both these teams have already secured their spots in our mid-season championship, Matt, there's a lot on the line here in Stage 2, including more favorable seeding, which when you're going up against the rest of the world means a heck of a lot. Have VP figured out how to play into these sim comms, or have they developed their own style that can play around it?
I don't know. Like Johnny kind of alluded to, right? We saw this match just a week ago, and it was not great for VP. But obviously, the meta has changed since then. Man, I gotta say, you were talking up like your outfit today, and I obviously don't get a chance to see your outfit before we come on. I mean, you said you had some words describing your outfit, and I mean that is one of the stupidest outfits you've ever worn. But you know, hey,
5 weeks.
Big games today, regardless.
I reckon I've worn this like 3 times this year, and you didn't bat an eyelid. Maybe someone just duked it in your cereal this morning.
I think it's just because you added the fake glasses to it. I think that's the portion.
They are real. I actually see that.
Oh wow, you are.
Dude,
I mean, no wonder you're missing stuff left and right yesterday. I mean, you can't see.
Yeah. Now you know how I managed to pick you out of a lineup of casters to work with, man. I just didn't have my glasses.
I hear Eric trying to say Mapzip but laughing at the same time in my ear. But the first, so you'll actually see them ban Genji. I like this for Twisted Minds, right? You get rid of the Genji. Jwoo obviously pretty tremendous on the hero, and we've seen teams try and do this against Twisted Minds, getting rid of the Lucio, but like it hasn't impacted them that much, right? Funny Astro can play the Juno, you can play Brig. I mean, a lot of other pretty good options here for TM.
It's like Juno Kiri, you know, and they can obviously pair the Kiri up with the Tracer a little bit and play that side fight style. That's worked, you know, quite well for them. That's definitely an option. Going back to yesterday, we were scratching our heads a little bit about the Twisted Mind strategy on OWCS, for example, because KSA was playing some pretty random tanks, like trying to match the sim comp right with a Reinhardt, for example, which didn't really look like it cut it. It was just a little bit slow, maybe struggled to respond. And then there was like a Sigma in that very first round. And I guess the idea was to try and hit an accretion on the D.Va or whoever was trying to dive into the backline with that sim TP. It didn't really work out. So I do want to see what the game plan is here for Twisted Minds, because remember, winning that control map means you only have to win on your map picks over the course of the series, right? In a first to 3, you win control, you win your map picks, you're gold. Even if it goes to 5, you're chilling.
And you know that Ryan is in a bad spot even when Johnny's like not really excited about it in the post game, right? He just kind of like glossed over it. It was such a blowout. Where I think they kind of and look, maybe this is something where like TM's kind of like holding strats. Maybe they feel like they're going to kind of see OWCS again, right, in our finals a little bit later today, where right now obviously there's prize money and seeding for the midseason championship on the line, but potentially both these teams want to save something for later.
Of course, here is your mode win percentage. And obviously, both these things pretty adept when it comes to this control game type. I've got to say, quite impressive, the hybrid win percentage for Twisted Minds. And I think a big part of that is that sort of preference for King's Row. They sort of pick that map when they can. And they're absolutely stellar there. The way that they defended against OWCS on that map yesterday was really quite impressive. They, they full held them. They held them off that point entirely. So if you could do that to the pretty much undisputed #1 team in your region right now, that's always a great ace to have in your sleeve. You can select that sort of map type anywhere throughout the series, and it might force VP into a hybrid map selection that doesn't exactly put Twisted Minds on their strengths. That's something they've got to be cognizant of, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, waiting for the game to get kicked off, but the seeding for this will matter, right? When we get to that mid-season championship, when you talk about like groups and you're bringing in all these other teams from all different regions, right? Depending on your finish here, right? You could end up with an easier path, right? Towards that big prize for the MSC. So obviously the in-region bragging rates are great, but you're looking at that big money at the end.
I tell you what I'm looking at, mate. It's the fact that you're wearing a collar. When is the last time you wore a collar? Do you play golf now?
No, I don't have the time or the money. I mean, golf is expensive. I know when I see Johnny like out there hitting it. I'm like, man, I just spend all my money on like loot boxes and battle passes and stuff. I was like, I don't have enough money for golf.
They're write-offs, mate. You just, I'm sure you know how to work the tax code.
And you're outside and it's hot. And you're not like, yeah, I mean, it's just not a thing.
Yeah, you've got white collar fraud, I think, in your sort of bloodline, Matt. So
yeah, absolutely.
Season 17, of course, is upon us. Worth checking out what is coming up while we wait for a slight delay at the start of Busan. Don't go too far. We'll be back on the other side of this.
Lost. I'm alive. Now we play in my world. Selecting upgrades to match new user. I think a level up is in order. How did you get in here? Don't touch that. Hey, this is not part of my programming. Class dismissed. Overdrive activated. Final upgrades inbound. You have unlocked the privilege to annihilate. Leaving so soon. Game over.
All right, thanks for sticking with us, folks. Here is your map set. A reminder of what we're headed into in this series. A Genji ban by Twisted Minds straight away. We've seen a couple of teams even target Junker Queen in certain maps. We haven't really seen that come to fruition, or we haven't really seen the reasoning behind it per se. But yeah, Lucio, taken away from TM. Don't think they're going to mind too much about that. Plenty of options for them.
Well, I think it's a difference though, right? Like, we'll see teams against like Peps, right? With FD God, you kind of pin him. It was like a Lucio player, right? And I think that's like pretty impactful. But I think Funny Astro has moved past the Lucio one trick like allegations, right? I think with Juno and Brig and some other heroes, like I don't think it's as impactful as like targeting against some other teams.
I don't think so. I think maybe VP just like have an idea. We know that Fixer probably looks, I don't know, his best when it comes to like some of these flex supports anyway. So Virtus.pro definitely found some strength in that direction. We got Malga out the gates for VP, and we got the Venture mixed in.
Yes, this is a comp that is like really good against Sim. So I talked a little bit about it yesterday, but obviously we didn't see it. But you stomp right on top of the Sim just like that. The burrow comes through and you're able to deal with the Sim. I think this is a great look here from VP, making some adjustments. We haven't seen anybody in EMEA, Mitch, really go for this comp against the Sim setups. We've seen everybody just kind of roll over and die against it, not really kind of try anything. So this is a great look here for VP.
This is the kind of comp that we saw, someone like, in the past come out of OWCS Korea. And we saw it earlier on this year. Virtus.pro able to make some use of it. Malga's gotten a little bit of a slight buff, as has a Venture in terms of their fire rate or recovery from each shot. However, Twisted Minds able to reassert themselves fairly quickly here. It's Pistola, who just gets sort of pumped with damage. Quartz obviously on the Sojourn. It's the right pick to sort of deal with this Malga. Going to lose 150 charged railgun shots. Also can break that Kate's fight fairly quickly. And that'll have KSA drop to the point to have a flip back.
Yeah, there just wasn't really any help for Vestola there as Quartz, okay, saving that slide away, and then lands a shot on the Shockwave. Vestola, gonna get just ripped there by Quartz. Quartz then kind of uses the railgun shot to finish off Shockwave as the Sojourn player here for Twisted Minds. You're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna be able to stop that Sim, right? And Yubi makes a change over to Tracer, but if you're not going to be able to shut down Quartz, it's going to be a long day. Yeah,
so the idea is, of course, go over towards the Orisa, who in theory has a favorable matchup in the front line, but we've seen it takes a little bit more than just the Orisa to deal with a good Ramatra player, and I think KSA has absolutely been that. It definitely feels like his best pick at the moment. Pistola wants to try and charge him, but they're a little bit separated. His Shockwave has to almost use a drill run to try and catch up with them. Yubi going down, Shockwave just descends on Simple, who's not able to get back to that safe sort of quarter. And that space is being taken away from Quartz. All of VP trying to rush up. The idea still the same for them as with the Malga composition, but Quartz has got a bit of space here to work with.
Yeah, he's going to use this overclock here up on the high ground because they have KSA below, getting closer to an annihilation. Nice spear connection there from Vestola. It's going to be a Kitsune rush here for VP over the point to try and flip it back.
KSA is able to play from that spot here on the low ground. Annihilation is at the ready, and Simple is keeping them topped up. Here's an orbital ray and a great connection there from Quartz. Gala falls by the wayside, a little too floaty out in the middle of the map, and Twisted Minds retain control. Only a brief flip back for VP, got him 8%. But now it's getting dangerous.
I think Shockwave's actually been sick on the Venture, like coming up with a few pickoffs. We've seen like in a lot of these fights, able to come up and connect with two and really make it tough for the backline. But Quartz is just going uncontested. I mean, I know Jaewoo trying to put some pressure on, but Quartz has just seemed like it's just free firing at range.
Pretty strong brawl set up here though with the orbital ray. That one is launched by Gala pretty early on, but Eyes are headed over towards Quartz. Pistola can't afford to cross the map. Now he's caught out in the open a little bit too low. Terra Surge just for that extra durability. And that's all he can really manage. Eventually, Simple's able to bring him down. Shockwave drops to the point here to try to flip it back. Twisted Minds went out there tank. But Vestola had also fallen earlier on. This is now a proper dogfight on the point. An early Suzu there from Simple. Can use a wall climb, and I don't think Shockwave accounted for that. Simple's able to swift step back to the rest of their team, and Yubi's trying to deal now with that Venture. But both tanks are going to be back in the game, and Vestola switched over to the Malga.
Yes, Yubi just trying to put some pressure here on a Fixa, right? As Gala's over to the Juno here as well. 2 kills in the feed here for Twisted Minds. You do end up getting Quartz, so maybe you're able to make something out of it. But Simple with this Kitsune rush should be able to close it out.
KSA's trying to maintain some ground here. Vestola low, crossed the point, took too much damage. Yubi able to finish him off. No one can contest KSA, unreal. Virtus.pro without their tank. Not able to play for the point here, and Shockwave is still coming off respawn. Twisted Minds lost 2 kills, I think, at the start of that fight. They're in like a 3 versus 4. Able to hold on.
And I mean, you just see just the sick Sojourn play there from Quartz in round number 1, where you're having Shockwave play this Venture, and I think you're actually getting some good value out of it. But I mean, Quartz is just dominating at range. I mean, look at the damage, right? 4,600. Jaewoo, 2,400 on the other side. You see Shockwave almost kind of keeping pace, right? With him, you know, but it's just the long range damage and just the constant, I know every time Vestola comes out of spawn, pretty much just getting chunked down by the Sojourn at range. And now you're going to see a swap. So the Freya coming in here for VP. I wonder though, Mitch, if because you're going to see this swap here for VP, Twisted Mind feels like there's an opening to maybe go back to the sim.
Definitely something that can punish this Diva, Matt. Twisted Minds obviously happy to play the Sojourn. VP bowing out of the longer range matchup on Mecha Base. Now, of course, Shockwave can definitely have some impact. It's a way more mobile composition brought from Virtus.pro, again with that Juno Kiri side fight. Mira and Vestola, who just gets pumped early. There's just no opportunity for Shockwave to get involved. He's got pretty safe passive positioning there and can't really chime in with the front line.
I mean, you get D-Mech right off the rip, though, right? I mean, where is the supports being able to kind of help Vestola as Jaewoo loses a fight on the other side of the map there? As Funny Astro and KSA take out both damage dealers. This is looking a lot like last week, Mitch, where this was not a real competitive game.
I mean, this round has not started well. In fact, if this is, you know, what Twisted Minds end up rolling out with over much of this series, Virtus.pro have to maybe even think they look towards Icenom and the different pool, maybe that more hazard-based gameplay to try and find an edge, because that's where they were able to get there on occasion in some previous matchups. Fixa those done well, deals with Quartz and allows Jaewoo to drop down to the point and start the contest, but he has to respect. Simple also holding his own in a virtual 1 versus 2 for much of this time. Obviously, you know, one of the very few players, if ever, to reach Champion 1. Something we sort of highlighted yesterday. Pretty insane grind set on that player. And it's definitely been a standout, maybe even an MVP for the entire stage. There's a stick there. It's going to be golden off and he has to recall out.
Yeah, it's a nice Suzu there from Fixa on Vestola. That's going to be able to keep him alive. Even after they get Quartz early, it's still just a lot of contest there that comes in for Twisted Minds. They probably get another like 15-20% on the point. So Now we'll see VP in control of this. No change. I thought maybe, okay, use that pulse bomb. You're going to change for UB over to the sim. But reminder, yes, I mean, how sick was UB on Coliseo, right? Losing effort, but I mean, just a tremendous tracer play yesterday. So maybe you feel pretty good about this.
A lot of that was because Simple was able to link up with UB on so many occasions and kind of overwhelmed Checkmate, who didn't have a Kiri to play alongside of him. Regardless, it was pretty impactful. Look at this, Twisted Minds very quickly back into position here. Fixer obviously falls pretty early on in the fight now, and Quartz can virtually stagger out that Juno if he dares to try and fight it, but has to respect. Don't necessarily want to give Gala too much of an opening. He's developed his orbital ray already.
Yeah, there's no reason to chase that at that moment in time if you're Quartz, right? You're better off just kind of playing your life, holding on to it. I think VP is going to be in a tough spot to flip this one back, Mitch, right? You're going to have orbital rays on both sides, but the annihilation here for Twisted Minds, and then Quartz with that overclock, even with the orbital ray, you're able to just kind of like tap people on through it. And they're not even going to get the orbital ray off. I mean, Quartz just domes Gala coming out of the spawn. So now you're not even going to be in position to use your orbital ray. Pistola's already lost his armor. This is brutal here for VP.
We've got to call it out. Both Kiriko's doing a heck of a lot of work. Simple's got about the same amount of damage as Yubi does in this round. And that's what we're sort of seeing from a lot of Kiriko players at this level, turning into legitimate damage.
I love this.
Here's an orbital ray. KSA wanders pretty much into the thick of things and is able to be handled, but Twisted Minds get themselves to 99. Won't see the need, I think, to spend any of these extra ultimates that they've developed. It's going to be an overclock and an orbital ray maintained for this next fight. Twisted Minds looking to take the map.
I actually like the decision there by KSA. I just don't think the rest of the team was in position to be able to follow it up, right? He kind of sees like the supports in the alleyway kind of approaching, figures like, okay, if I use my annihilation, if you have Funny Ash's orbital ray a little bit closer to use there, like I think that is a great scenario for TM. It just seems like they weren't all on the same page at that moment.
Regardless, they'll be able to save that ultimate for about now. It looks like Pistola might have caught a little bit too close to the fray. He's able to back away, but the healing's going to take a little bit of time. And in the meantime, Twisted Mind's been able to use that orbital ray to at least get into the map. Jay Wutho controls the Mega. Quartz is looking for a target with his overclock, and much of it is expired, completely trolled by Fixer, who's able to get back to safety. A warning shot on Gala in midair, but Twisted Minds weren't able to find their objective early on in this fight, and now they go down one of their main healers. Quartz out of the picture. Vistola's able to dive on towards that Sojourn position, and Jaewoo's pulse bomb accounts for Simple. Here's VP now, threatening to even up the map. Couple of one fights consecutively here, and Twisted Minds have just let themselves slip.
Yeah, I think they're going to be able to get a touch, though. So UB actually ends up living here on through this. So UB will get a touch. Going to use recall. Get on back is see who comes in to touch next. It'll be Kitsune rushes from both sides.
UB gets a touch there. Keeps the game going now. KSA back on the Diva, looking to maybe pressure in this Kiriko direction, but there's a Malga on the field, and Simple clearly wasn't ready for the hail of bullets. KSA also has to opt out of a direct fight against Pistola, and he's beckoning, saying, come and fight me here on this point. KSA can't. Eventually, he just gets dragged down. Far too much damage to deal with. And Virtus.pro able to exploit an overextension a couple of fights ago from KSA.
Yeah.
With that, annihilation, and able to punish them with a round win.
Yeah, like I talked about, I kind of like the decision by KSA. I think you just needed everybody to be on the same page and kind of push through that alleyway, right? You had an opportunity to get like a pick or two when you're already at 99. So that'll send us to a third round here on Busan. Is a very important map here for both sides, right? You know, getting off of that first map, you know, forcing the other team to kind of burn some of their selections. You do see in that second round, though, Mitch, when Shockwave goes over to the Freya, he's caught up and passed Quartz in terms of the damage.
Yeah, which has obviously been crucial. Eventually, that Freya's been able to take hold. It definitely felt like it was a slower start, but there was some awkward positioning at the beginning of the round for Pistola, where there's that really early D-Mech, and Virtus.pro can't build any tempo. Now, clean slate. Decide around here on this control map. Remember, VP unable to take a map at all last time against Twisted Minds. Need to see if they've been able to develop over the course of this lower bracket run into a team that could vie for that first seed in EMEA. It's already Quartz looking to push up on the fringes of the map. They're going to play around this KSA Ramatra. Definitely their best look thus far.
I think without a doubt, right? Nothing too, cute like the Reinhardt or anything here. So they do find Quartz, though. That's a nice collapse from Jaewoo and Vestola. But are you able to keep Vestola in mech? Getting dangerously low. Looks like he's going to get out for some healing.
Vistola, I feel like he definitely needs both of his supports in play to be able to linger in the front line for any space of time. Simple's just doing his thing on the flanks here. Just an unreal talent this guy has turned out to be. Great deployment of the Suzu there, just making it impossible for Jaegu to get anything done, and he goes to one. Funny Astro picks him up.
The way he just chases, I mean, that's Jaegu he's trying to hunt down, right? I mean, one of the better tracers, better DPS players in EMEA. So being able to see Simple just kind of like hunt him down, I mean, that is impressive, and just shows that he has like zero fear when it comes to taking these duels.
And it's important because they can play separately from the Ramatra on the point. Like Simple and Funny Astro, or Simple and Yubi can play here and control this to the right side of the map. VP have to basically use all 5 players to dive on 1 or 2 of those positions and try and overwhelm them in numbers. KSA is going to be really hard to shift here, and okay, boulder shot point blank, doesn't matter. Quartz, a big rail hit onto Shockwave, shuts him down at the cost of that boulder shot. The VP lose a pretty key ultimate for shutting someone like a Ramatra down and lose that player. Still thinks they're a little bit better. They've dealt with the side fight component of Twisted Mind's setup, but they still need to work on KSA, a tough nut to crack at the best of times. But the only Funny Astro on the field, eventually the Ramatra has to capitulate.
Yes, finally a flip here from VP. It feels like it's hard to just keep Vistola alive though in mech, like amongst like this mass amounts of damage that's coming down from the support line. I know Yubi and Quartz as well, right? As Vistola is going to get a mech back here, so we'll have it for this next fight, which is very important.
Kitsune rush here for both sides though. Those cooldowns to be recycled definitely feel like it favors the Ramatra and the frontline scenario, especially with that increased throughput for Simple. Here it comes, Orbital Ray, going to be committed to the fight as well. The Quartz did get taken down, isolated early. Twisted Mind's being punished here for having their players spread a bit more thinly than VP tend to do. Going Fixer and Gala out of the picture. There's no way Vistola is going to be able to hold up under this kind of scrutiny. And that'll get Twisted Minds back within striking distance of a map win.
And look, Vistola is able to get a pick right off the rip, right? I mean, he finds Quartz, and he actually goes back, and I think he finds Funny Astro as well. The issue is that they're not able to keep the rest of the team alive when that, really aggressive Ramatra push comes in, right? With the Kiri and the Tracer, you're going to give up Quartz in this type of situation to the Diva, but you're going to win out on that front line against everything else.
And Fixer has only been able to get half of Simple's healing for about the same amount of damage.
Look at this. So, he's just hunting down Shockwave in the spawn here, of course.
This is what Kiri comps do, right? You have these little ends that can take on these isolated individuals, and if your enemy is playing Freya or Sojourn, easy to sort of jump in their direction. Like I was saying, the Kiriko impact, I mean, there's a gap there. Simple has been able to put out a ridiculous amount of healing while having massive damage impact in these fights. Vistola has died 12 times at this point, most in the lobby. It's been so hard for VP to keep this Diva fighting fit. There's another example of it. And a beautiful pulse for Yubi to make sure even after the self-destruct, there's no DMEC opportunity. That's curtains for VP on Busan. No coming back from a sequence like that. Twisted Minds, another strong start against VP.
And they don't get anything with their orbital ray there towards the end for Virtus.pro, and like we talked about a lot of the time, I like the Diva pick because you can, Diva's obviously great at dueling, whether it be like a Soj or even like a Juno, right? And can go toe-to-toe with a lot of the tanks, but when you have Vistola go in, right, you're losing that defense matrix, you're losing a little bit of presence in the backline. And then Simple is so good in combination with the Ram and the Tracer going on in that Vistola gets a kill, turns around, his whole team is dead, right? I mean, so it's you're not really accomplishing what you need to have happen here. The Maga looks are quite interesting. I'm curious if we see them try and go to some maps where they can incorporate that.
I really am curious to see the stats breakdown for this map because it's not always very indicative. Sometimes the team that loses has more healing because they just get out damaged and still end up being unable to get there. But Simple on the Kiriko, sometimes I like to sort of measure the impact of a Kiri, just add the damage and healing together, right, for some of those more hybrid supports here. And it's pretty absurd what Simple is able to do. His uptime on either doing damage or providing that healing is pretty crucial. So VP, look at the healing difference, I think, between these two.
Pretty close, though.
Yeah, I mean, it is a close game, right? Look at the KD. Really, really very, very tight. But that difference, Simple ends up with an extra 3.5, 4K healing over Fixer, while both Kirikos have about the same amount of damage done, which to me is it's pretty ridiculous. He's basically always active, always doing stuff, and spends a lot of time alive. KSA dies 6 times over the entirety of Busan. 6. Vistola, 13. you've got such a durable, frontliner in Ramatra who has better damage mitigation, arguably, I think, than D.Va. Even if he lacks the mobility, you stick him on the point. He's your pivot. You play the side fight style with the Kiriko, play off angles there, and generally just gang up on any solo individuals like Shockwave, for example, who are trying to play from these like nasty little spots. Sanctuary is such a great map for like those individual loose ends who want to take off angles, and I think that the Kiri style to group up with a Tracer is great at shutting that down.
What do you think that VP goes with here? Like in terms of their kind of strengths here, like we didn't even really see the sim kind of come into play. Could they go Midtown?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's something we've seen VP go to in the past, right? Like a double flex support option. There's Dorado we've seen them go to, but they're also pretty good at circuit. So I think a few different options. And as I highlight those, we do hear, the map pick is New Junk City. So a really good brawl map here. But this is where the sim can excel for both sides. But maybe they feel like that. Maybe they ban the sim, right? Maybe that's something they decide to do. I'll be curious how they attack it.
If Mechabase is anything to go by, it appears that Virtus.pro have a reasonable answer to the sim comp with the Malga Venture style, that sort of all-in rush, that very dangerous frontline scenario, right? It could like circumvent the bulk of any of like the Ramatra, for example. That probably has to be where they sort of make investments. I would have thought that Midtown was a decent call, Matt, just to try and take the King's Row option away from Twisted Minds, but VP might just be conceding the hybrid.
But like, let's say if you're VP, right? If I was Twisted Minds, okay, so they bring in Ice Gnome, so maybe we are going to see some more like the Hazard type of setups. I was going to say, like, if VP doesn't ban a tank, if I was like Twisted Minds, I would probably ban like either the Maga or probably the Maga, right? Because you were able to kind of dominate once you forced the Stola over to the Orisa, and you started to play those comps, right? The Orisa versus the Ram with like the Venture with the Orisa is just not the same as playing it with the Maga. So I would have said that's like a really easy ban to basically just kind of ruin that strategy if that's what they were going to go with.
Yeah, you could, also the Sojourn switch, right? We saw the Sojourn switch up from Twisted Minds when they realized that like the Symmetra wasn't really going to be enough for them. So, you could try and also target that strategy. Like you could try and ban Soj, maybe like force Freya here out of Twisted Minds. Maybe that's somewhere that like Shockwave generally likes to be.
We don't really see Quartz play a ton of the Freya. Like did obviously when Freya was really busted and just came out, right? But like now that she's not just like kind of exploding people cross map every few seconds, we don't really see Quartz kind of go for it. Probably would go for something like a Cassidy, right? Could play something along those lines. But with Ice Gnome coming in, I think this is definitely going to be like Hazard.
I think that Cassidy against Venture has some edges, but it's still a problem because you cannot really poke the Venture down as they cross towards you, right? Like Barroad, it's a little bit uncomfortable in general. So worth bearing in mind here. I think a pretty decent flashpoint win percentage here for VP might sort of be indicating why they want to head in this direction.
Also Twisted Minds basically wins every other game mode just about all the time, so maybe that's the reason.
I mean, the last time I saw New Junk City, we haven't seen New Junk City from Virtus.pro at all in these playoffs. They haven't had the chance to go there. I think they tried to take Twisted Minds to Dorado, I think, if they lost that first. Yeah, because they played Busan in their original game. They tried to go to Dorado and got rolled, full held on that map, or, as much as you can on a sort of hybrid map. Without checkpoints was the issue. So the Ramatra ban comes in for Virtus.pro. This is definitely where they're trying to like throw their eggs heavily in towards this basket. Remember, losing Busan means that they have to win one of Twisted Minds' map picks at some point. And if you're VP, you're probably not expecting King's Row to be one of those winning opportunities. So you have to maybe wait later into the series to try and get that edge. They're playing for a map 5 scenario.
So the Ram ban comes in here for VP, right? This would probably put Twisted Minds playing D.Va, right? A D.Va type of setup. Maybe we see Orisa, some of that, but Orisa is actually pretty good against the Hazard, right? If that's what Ice Gnome's going to go to. But Twisted Minds gets rid of the Kiri, where Kiri can. It's wild to see Twisted Minds ban the Kiri, by the way, right? With how good Simple is.
Yes.
I mean, how much he just dominated, right? So they have to feel that with the Ramatra off the board and then the Kiri gone, there's a composition they're going to go to here that they feel like has a huge chance of being successful.
I also think it's pretty interesting that we have a Flashpoint map without a Lucio ban, right? Quite often, Lucio is getting targeted when we come to those sort of occasions. Kiriko also does, occasionally get banned on maps like this. I'm pretty sure it was Gen G banning Kiriko against Ultimates on their New Junk City outing. So something that is often looked at. Puts, Fixer in a position probably just to, roll out on this Lucio here. Funny Astro, of course, we know he can reprise that role quite happily. Storied Lucio player in his time. And Twisted Minds might be feeling out this Malga look at themselves. Say, okay, maybe we can have sort of decent protective architecture for someone like Yubi. Have the sim. That extra mobility could go a long way. But perhaps they might have other ideas. Over towards the Diva here.
So we saw a few times yesterday the Queen actually get banned. So it'll be VP playing the Queen with a Moira Lucio backline with the Venture Genji. So this is a completely new look for us here in EMEA that we have not seen before, and probably won't see too much of it right here because Shockwave dies right away.
Yeah, not great. But again, this Genji Queen style in theory should be a good look for Virtus.pro. I feel like that's the best hero you could put Jwoo on, and Icedom, we don't know much about their Junker Queen in fairness, but she has gotten more powerful with that increased overhealth from the commanding shout, as well as she also gives more overhealth to her allies. And that in the context with the DPS passive getting a bit of a boost means that Jwoo has an extra 25% health, extra healing reduction, means that it's easier to go in on those Genji missions to assassinate.
Yeah, but how players have talked about Sim and how Sim has evolved the game over the last few weeks, and really just kind of her position in the game. Sim can poke at range with the right clicks, right? Mobility to a team that you can't really achieve with anybody else, ramping damage. I still think people are trying to figure out how you kind of play against it. That's an immortality field that doesn't keep courts alive, as see right there, but that Sim TP just getting everybody out of dodge.
Yeah, a big massacre swing there from Icedom is pretty gainful. Twisted Minds have to work from the fringes of the objective here, but have been able to keep it contested for a time. That's KSA sort of cycling cooldowns, touching down, getting back to his backline, and in theory getting healed. But now with that Simple, that's going to become much more difficult. Baptiste backline is not particularly resilient to Genji or Venture pressure. Baptiste literally can't avoid Venture, as, well, he heads in the same direction as Venture does when they pop up. So good look here for Virtus.pro. Coalescence is online. Obviously a very quickly developing ultimate, even more so now that Moira's primary healing has been boosted.
Yes, but Twisted Minds, though, they get up to 93%, right? So just one fight for them to be able to take this, and they're going to come up with just about everything to work with. I think you can also see when we're on with Ice Gnome, just kind of circling, right? Figuring where this is. Oh, that's a nice use of the TP there. Gets everybody out of the way. Then they're going to drop the Ant Matrix with the Sim Wall. This is a brutal scenario here for VP. Fixa ends up using the beat, but only gets 2.
That Simple apparently not able to benefit from that sound barrier, so an easy job to clean up the Baptiste. The Quartz had so much room to work with, and it feels like Virtus.pro committed a lot of their cooldowns to that first dive where Shockwave pops up underneath the TP, and Twisted Minds had already vacated the area. Sick outmaneuver here from Twisted Minds. Definitely the best Symmetra team in EMEA as far as we're concerned. I mean, Alcal, I guess, could maybe suggest that they're in the running here, but really feel like these looks out of Yubi and Co have been very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yubi's kind of, you would say that Yubi's probably the originator there. It's Ice Gnome, actually. That's a huge anti, connects with almost everybody there, so that'll give VP a fight win, a much needed one. I know Yubi, I would say, kind of the originator of the sim, right? We've seen Twisted Minds play the sim for much longer than just about every other team, but Alcatia's pretty nuts on it, with Checkmate in the fold, as he has picked that hero up and use it to great effect rather quickly. So Flashpoint will open. It will be VP who gets here first.
Tectonic shock here for Shockwave, but I'm not really sure what the plan was for that ultimate. Twisted Minds, once again, pretty slippery, hard to catch on to.
Look how far they can go.
Yeah, I mean,
look how far they can go though. Across the entire, across the entire plane of the point. And what do? You have no idea if they're coming from the right or the left anymore. It's just kind of like, it makes your decision making so hard there.
Oh, he's cooked.
VP.
He's so cooked. Gala giving him a slurp down. Quartz was down at 2 HP after that encounter, but that's not really enough for Virtus.pro. Gala falling away. We'll have another Coalescence here, but it's a pretty easily answered ultimate. We saw Funny Astro just beat into it in that last fight, and didn't catch on to Simple, but
one of the hardest things in shooting games, right, is when like players change like levels of verticality typically, right, where like you can't see them anymore. But like the sim TP does the same thing, but like just in a complete 180, right? At that point, you see the TP come through and it's completely behind you on the opposite side of the point. If you turn, they don't TP and you're dead. If you don't turn, they just go through and you're dead, right? As they force them down to the low ground, and you lose Jaywu. That's brutal.
I mean, I really felt like Quartz bitten off a little bit more than he could chew there, going for an audacious Deadeye play. But the fact that he gets out with the kill on Jaywu of all people, pretty absurd stuff. Using Yubi, though, is a bit of a problem here for Twisted Minds, but KSA is healthy enough to maintain point presence, and there's a sound barrier in reserve for Funny Astro. Is there a way to get value out of this? It seems unclear, because Simple's forced off of line of sight, and KSA does get that sound barrier, maybe keeps him alive long enough to get a remech, so that ends up being an entirely worthwhile use of that ultimate, especially if you can convert this into a little bit more tempo, some kill pressure. Jaywu has to contest with the immortality field, and it's too much to try and cut through, brought down by Quartz. KSA rotating back over towards the point now, and that sim TP is just, it's something else, man. Really difficult for Virtus.pro to keep up with a raw pace. It's ankle-breaking speed for Twisted Minds getting across the map. They get to 99 here, and maybe even more with Fixer out of the picture, and now Icenom set on all sides.
You just cannot match this mobility, even with your Lucio in the mix, right? Venture, Genji, it doesn't matter. Just the team mobility in the distance that you can cover with this sim is crazy, and Twisted Mind just putting on a great display how to use that here against Virtus.pro. Virtus.pro coming in with a very interesting comp. We saw the Clean get banned a few times yesterday. Maybe seems like something that could, end up popping up in the meta a little bit more, but at least right now, not working against Twisted Mind sim setup.
VP's comp needs to win fights quickly, Matt. Right? They have good burst healing, you could say, but outside of that, the sustain isn't good. Quartz here, another Deadeye. Oh, Icenom forced out of line of sight. And again, there's just not enough throughput to keep them standing. In fact, it looks like Virtus.pro supports win in no position to keep that Junker Queen in the game. Such a cheaply won fight here for Twisted Minds. While Shockwave is maybe hoping to stall us out a little bit longer, he knows it's relatively inevitable.
Well, I think he also knows that he needs to get out because there's going to be TP in the entire team in his face in just a few seconds, right? Where Twisted Minds gets control of point yet again. I mean, dude, losing your tank that early, I mean, it's obviously very difficult to keep Ice Gnome up. As look at that, I mean, a full TP behind with an Amp Matrix here, and like, what do you even do? How do you even react? I mean, they're going to try and get KSA out of mech, but you're going to have Funny Astro with this sound barrier. Now a huge advantage, right? Because Fix is dead on the other side of things. You've not even used this sound barrier.
And they can't kill KSA. That's the problem. Twisted Minds know how to keep their Diva alive, something Virtus.pro struggled with heavily on that previous map, because that Simple's Amp Matrix is used purely just for healing. Keeping that Diva in mech, obviously not the easiest thing when your Diva's bobbing up and down and your Baptiste, you need to get those direct hits for that extra healing, but Simple really doesn't miss a healing grenade there. And this is desperation now for Virtus.pro, Matt. One more opportunity to keep the game going. They've already committed the Coalescence to a previous fight. It's going to be Tectonic Shock required here to get them out, and maybe a slightly longer fight to build ultimates for Icenom and Jaywu respectively.
This one, though, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be, I know. Oh, you're going to get
nice beat, bro.
So you're not going to get a use of the beat, man. Yep. This is a blowout.
That is brutal stuff. We go from Ajax to Ijax there as the Deadeye denies Fix's opportunity to throw a sound barrier, which was much needed. A fight without Coalescence. They needed some time to get Jaywu and Icenom in position. There's a Rampage, there's a Blade opportunity there. But Virtus.pro's Junker Queen comp just falls flat against this Twisted Minds look, and it's been banned against this team before. These teams surely have scrimmed against it, and it seems decent. But against a team like Twisted Minds who can just dodge your hard engage with a sim TP, it just seems like a mismatch.
Yeah, it's just I don't even think they're really close in that regard, right? I mean, it's a nice, interesting setup, but it just results in you just getting blown out. I mean, they were never really to kind of gain. I mean, look, they win a few fights here and there, right? But it wasn't like it wasn't like you ever felt that Twisted Mind's going to lose this map, right? And I mean, you never get a use of your sound barrier. I mean, just a pretty brutal map here overall for VP.
Absolutely. They can't be feeling great about this. They obviously go to the New Jack City, try and get a favorable Flashpoint matchup. It seems anything but. That TCF from Simple, really effective, and KSA virtually unkillable inside the Diva. I mean, the same story. We talk about KSA on Busan were like, oh, they couldn't kill the Ramatra. Maybe it's not that they just couldn't kill the Ramatra. They just cannot kill Twisted Mind's front line. I mean, all over the stats board, looking dominant. It's obviously that sort of disparity in damage delta, I think, is definitely something worth looking towards. But this Twisted Mind's backline, bro, are very, very hard to beat when they're at their best.
And that's with the Curie gone, right? For Twisted Minds, like simple not they get rid of it to play the BAP here, and I mean they're just as dominant as ever. I have no idea what you do here for your VP. You know, this is a recurring trend here with these two teams. The sim, we've heard Shockwave even talk about it in interviews, right? Like it's a completely different game where VP. I mean, they're going to go to Runasapi here, but Runasapi is a really good match. So I guess, could you play Maga or Orisa here?
Certainly.
Is that kind of the goal?
You could play either of those. I think, like, you'd reset into the Ramatra, though. I think you might need to try and find a way to get Mei into this game.
Well, I think we'll know their path, obviously, if they make a sub or not, right? I don't think Ice Gnome stays in to play, like, Orisa and things like that. Like, he would probably play the Hazard, but I don't know how good of a result you're going to see. So the solo will come in. This is Maga or Orisa to me. I mean, I guess you could also play Ram in the mirror, but it's something they have not looked like they've wanted to do.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like you can really get the better of KSA in the mirror matchup at all. I wonder if you can't play like that Mei-based rushdown style against the Ramatra. Something that like has been used against Twisted Mind. I want to say it was.
Look, when you're trying to argue for Mei on Runasapi,
you're
not in a good spot.
Not great. However,
you're not in a good spot.
If you are targeting KSA,
yep,
you could literally play the Alcadzia Bastion Mei Orisa composition.
Okay. Yep.
Right. Like swing the wall, try and blow up KSA, and just hope that the enemy's DPS don't hit you at all, and then you're fine.
Okay. So Circuit Royal, where they did that.
Yep.
Slightly different than Runasapi.
Yep. Very true.
I would say not
but
the
you know
same
what?
map geometry,
Runasapi
not the same mode.
They both have roads.
That's true. They do both share
roads.
I assume a lot of our maps do. A lot of our maps do have roads.
We need some dirt track. We need some dirt track pushback.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Take us back to the outback. Actually, Junkertown has some dirt track. It's not all road.
Yeah.
There you go.
So VP, they decide to burn the sim ban here. Get it out. Okay. We don't want it. TM says that's not really nice that you targeted our sim. We're gonna target Vestal Lazarita and make him unhappy as well. I think you're gonna see though tons of like, dude, the Tracer battle, like obviously Jayu is crazy, like good, but like Yubi the last 2 days, man, has been on a little bit of a Tracer heater.
Yes.
I mean he's been kind of on fire. So yeah, obviously the sim is great for Twisted Minds, and that's kind of like their bread and butter. It's not like they can't do other things though. And I don't want people to be fooled by like the Tracer Curie setup for Twisted Minds also being really good for the flank play, because there were times where Yubi is just gapping checkmate in a raw 1v1. Like both Tracers are fighting, checkmate is like smashing that E button, recalling, sweating, and just getting pressured down. So Yubi can definitely handle himself. I'd like to see that sort of Curie Tracer look here. Go for some side fights, couple skirmishes in the extremities. But now I don't know if Virtus.pro have a really solid way to target the Ramatra play. Maybe they do try and go for this Malga look here, but it feels like that has struggled. Didn't really look like it cut the mustard on that first map of this series. And it is match point, of course, for Twisted Minds, looking to earn their place, not only into the $20,000 prize bracket at second place, but also earn that rematch against Alcadzia. Show us a little bit more than that 5-map banger we got yesterday. Although it was a kind of series where both teams blew each other out on respective maps, because Twisted Minds got to play King's Row. We all know what happens there. But they'll get another crack at it, that top seed in that grand final. I mean, I like the Maga if you can combo with a Venture against the Sim. Like, just kind of like playing the Maga here. I don't know how this is going to work out. Against the Ram, we've seen, as of recently, right, that the Ram can actually win out against this Maga type of setup. They also have this Juno Kiri backline here for Twisted Minds. I mean, this is what's been so good for them when you play these different types of compositions. The only thing that I find quite interesting, right, is Court's going to play the Freya. We haven't seen him play this really the entire series, and typically he always kind of goes towards the Soj. So maybe feels like the Freya here with some of the high ground on this map. Mitch, right? You can kind of like get on top of the buildings and slide down, stay up in the air for a while. Maybe you feel like that's a little bit of an advantage.
Maybe the idea is that bowler shot into Malga is just like really devastating and something that's pretty key to taking him down. But the game begins with JWoo on the Tracer being able to drag Funny Astro down, which doesn't really bode well for Twisted Minds at all. I certainly think you've called attention to the most important part of Twisted Minds comp here, Matt. Does Quartz have a massive game on the Freya? Has he been cooking something up for us here? Because Shockwave is more than happy to play either the Soj or the Freya here and has looked good at that first fight.
I'd ideally like to see Quartz just play the Soj, right? I mean, we saw in map 1, right? He was able to just kind of like land these railgun shots just directly into Vestola. This time, Vestola goes over toward that side, not able to survive in that close quarter scenario, taking damage from just about everybody. So the Freya here building up to a bola shot rather quickly. So maybe you feel like even with how Busan went, where you were using that no Soj and coming up with some really great results, you can actually just kind of copy that with the Freya here, and maybe just some of these longer sight lines give you an advantage.
Simple has more damage than Quartz right now, just to give you guys an idea of what's going on. Like,
I mean, I'm not surprised.
His kunai uptime is ridiculous. And again, he doesn't even have the perk that gives him that extra healing. So, in theory, big investment on the damage side of things here, but JWoo deals with Funny Astro yet again. Juno is always going to be the target here for the Tracer, but JWoo ends up being put on the menu himself. Fixer goes down. Quartz is a pretty safe spot to play from now. Bot, though, is moving away from them. That's perhaps something that you need to consider in Simple is solo.
Yeah, but look at this. Why not? A little solo rush here.
We are full send gameplay on this Kiriko. And it buys enough time, Alex, for Quartz to get back into this fight here. Vestola is permanently 30% HP because it's Simple, and, well, what goes up must come down.
Nobody to TP to. Nobody to TP to at the time. It looked like, he was maybe kind of looking through like the wall there to go towards KSA, but not able to kind of get it in time. So that will be a little bit of a loss here. We'll see if they put some pressure on a KSA, which they do.
Shockwave struggling a little bit with his Freya pressure from that long distance. Brought down by KSA, a little left hook to send him packing. Yubi, though, goes down. JWoo's having an excellent game so far. And it's annihilation for KSA. Fortunately, the Pulsar torpedoes come in when they're needed, and Simple now actually has to use his left click for a time. Keep KSA standing. Good stall here with his Ramatra, but no one's really matching the presence of JWoo right now, who's found Simple as well. Cage fight's going to be drawing in this Ramatra now, but the orbital ray keeps KSA standing for a time. Quartz has a point-blank bowler shot there, but JWoo's pulse bomb accounts for 2. Beautifully done inside the cage fight. Virtus.pro keep their lead up and add a checkpoint to their tally.
And this is starting to look good here for VP. I think if I'm Twisted Minds, okay, so they do go with the May. I want to see them go to the Soj. I think Quartz has just been way better on the Sojourn than playing the Freya. Not like he can't play the Freya, but we haven't seen it all this series. He's been phenomenal on the Sojourn. Don't really understand the Freya swap here, maybe for that longer sight line, but when you see Shockwave playing the Sojourn on the other side, it's a free opportunity for him to do so.
Quartz is topping the lobby in damage. I mean, like, JWoo has like half of the damage that he has, but has 13 eliminations to Quartz's 6. So finishing off those kills really effectively, it feels like much of Quartz's damage is simply being turned into support player ult charge. Virtus.pro now, it's getting pretty scary. That 100-meter mark is looming, and VP showing no signs of slowing down. It's an overclock in the arsenal for Shockwave, ready to unleash.
And I mean, the bowler shot's pretty decent, right, for some just kind of like AoE damage. I don't think, though, it is as scary as Quartz rounding a corner with an overclock. So now he will finally go over to the Sojourn. Let's see if this makes an impact.
Virtus.pro have been stopped short of triple digits, but they still have a massive lead here. Shockwave forced into a tighter angle. There's Simple yet again, getting onto the kill feed in the best way possible, shutting a Sojourn down who threatened to ruin this fight. And I told you, Matt, I told you. May makes her way in here, just on the opposite side of the scoreboard that I expected to see them. Yubi has decided to pick it up. Still decent catch potential onto this Malga, in fairness.
Simple just turns the corner. Almost just kills, like, one-shots JWoo there. So JWoo gonna have a world of trouble here trying to get towards this back line, as he does have a pulse bomb. You do lose Funny Astro here. So I think this could be a fight that VP comes out on top in.
JWoo here. He's done enough in this fight. And he's just getting some extra chip damage in the final moments. It's VP now heading back to threaten the very base of Twisted Minds. Annihilation here for KSA last time looked pretty good. More importantly, Twisted Minds are using their Ramatra as someone who contests well, stays alive for quite some time, and punishes anyone who lingers too close to the front line with that Nemesis form punch. So there's Yubi. Is there a catch there with that May wall? Yes, it's Vistola tucked into that small room. Caught out for the time being, but of course can use his shoulder charge to get out of this position, and frankly is in no mood to move. Yubi's trying to cut off like any of the return fire, maybe shut down some of this healing angle, but you can see where the backliners of VP are located. Vistola has got no risk of falling right now. Vistola saves his escape for the expected annihilation, which doesn't have any target to catch onto to prolong its duration. Soundbarrier comes out from Fixer. He realizes KSA is getting a little bit too close to his backline on the left side of the map, and Shockwave has to double back himself now. Quartz dealt with another pulse. Jwoo just dominating, having a great game of 21 eliminations and counting. And Twisted Minds are struggling on Runasapi.
I mean, this looks like two different teams, right? From the first two games. I mean, just absolute stomps in favor of Twisted Minds early on, but here on Runasapi, it has been all VP. An opportunity to complete the map as well here, Mitch, as Twisted Minds going to bring in a Lucio here, and Yubi going to go to the Tracer. Really, the only difference now, you're looking at this like Maga versus Ram.
Only recall there for Jwoo. That's going to buy Quartz a heck of a lot of room, and he knows it. And to Shockwave just peers into the side room. Big overclock hit on towards Yubi. Gala, though, is felled by Quartz. Both Sojourns giving as good as they get here, and Fixer is down. Quartz has accounted for all of the supports of Virtus.pro. And they will be able to fight their way out of what looks like a compromising situation. But it is about a 90-meter difference between these teams. Twisted Minds still searching for their first checkpoint now. Below 30% game time remains on Runasapi.
And you see there towards the end, obviously we're very late into the game at the moment, but like Quartz putting that damage into Vistola, just pumping it in, it's a huge difference maker. But whether you're on the difference between the Sojourn and the Freya, so I think being on the Freya for so long definitely hurt them early on.
Shockwave struggling here. Quartz just gets a big amount of damage at the start of the fight. The healing doesn't come remotely soon enough. Pulse here for Jwoo. Yet again, a big opportunity. Maybe hoping to combine it with a cage fight with everyone tied together. So here he'll maintain it. Virtus.pro a lot of buffer, a lot of ground to give its house money that they're more than willing to pay with right now in order to build that big bank of ultimates and get right back down Twisted Minds alley on this map. Vistola plays the corner here. It's a strong place for the Malga to be set up, and that's denied for now by the Vortex.
I mean, if VP were to lose this one, I mean, this would be a brutal loss, right? I mean, you're going to have cage fight here, cage fight pulse bomb, but when that cage fight comes through, you're going to have this annihilation to work with. That is a huge pick off, though, with the pulse bomb, getting rid of Quartz.
It's where Jwoo's hit a pulse bomb every single time he's been able to develop it, and a great target to find. A Sojourn at the start of the fight. These Twisted Minds damage is really just down to Yubi and KSA, and the former is dragged off the map by Fixer. Annihilation here, not effective. Pretty underwhelming, all things considered. Twisted Minds don't decide to commit a sound barrier into that engagement. They'll probably have to use it just to get back into the map. They're running out of time here to stake their claim to Runasapi.
No, I mean, Jwoo, I think just playing on a different level, like you mentioned, feels like he has not had a pulse bomb that didn't connect with a player, and then also being able to deal with Quartz. It feels like a lot of times out of the spawn, not giving him that space to dominate like he was in these early maps.
Here's the rush here for Virtus.pro. Twisted Minds reciprocating, but Vistola already treading the orange pathway straight in Twisted Minds' direction. It's a sound barrier from extremely high up, Buddy Astro. That was in the stratosphere, brother, but it comes down in a timely enough fashion to give Twisted Minds the edge in this fight. With Vistola taken down early, he got in their face. The damage was there in spades for Quartz, and now an overclock is just around the corner. Still, it's going to have to be a pretty magical run for Twisted Minds to take this map away. In all likelihood, folks, we're heading to King's Row.
So, Jwoo on a flank here. Maybe there's an opportunity for him to get a pulse bomb, but if they're able to get a pick off here, right, for Twisted Minds, you would start to come up on some of these ultimates. Not saying they make this like crazy run back, but it would start to get a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit more dangerous than Virtus.pro. Were that to be the case. Still very low here. Gala and Fixer. Milano really trying to live up to his name. Vistola is going to be fighting Fit, can just duck into that side corner here. So we'll go back to a neutral situation where Vistola can contest from a safe position into the back line. Shockwave tried to get Yubi, though. Forced to Vistola. Definitely trying to pressure the main body of Virtus.pro there, maybe working against him. And it's going to be KSA playing the objective here, trying to tempt Virtus.pro to give him a straight up fight. Twisted Minds looking for an objective here, of course, which will mean the butt scratch takes up a bit of extra time and will allow VP to get in position. But they're in a bit of an odd spot right now. Very disparately spread across the map, trying to return to play that objective. Vistola charges on him. Magala under pressure. He doesn't know where from. I think it was a disruptor shot that tickled at him, and now out of the annihilation. Virtus.pro have to retreat. Still no checkpoint just yet for Twisted Minds, and here comes Shockwave, headshot, multiple of them off that railgun, and that's going to be enough. Jwoo chimes in yet again. A ridiculous Tracer showing 36 eliminations, 4 deaths for Jwoo on Runasapi. That is a game-saving performance for the Tracer.
I mean, he was just farming there towards the end. The early kill on a Funny Astro, denying potentially that use of a sound barrier, forces that annihilation early, and then Simple just all his own on the Kiri, just not able to keep everybody healed up as VP obviously keep themselves alive in this series. They're gonna have to find a win though on like one of these obviously preferred maps for TM, right? TM will have that first, they'll have the map pick and first ban for the remaining of the series. So puts themselves in a rough spot for VP, but at least they gain some confidence after that one.
I mean, yeah, like I said, I think we're really heading to King's Row, which just seems amazing for Twisted Minds in general. But let's give credit where it's due. This Malga composition, mind you, the Orisa is banned out. So, KSA is mindful of the potential of Virtus.pro to sort of try and target this Ramacha. But in the end, so much more of the focus in this game comes down to our DPS players. Gala doesn't try to match Simple's damage output on the Kiriko this time. He is holding M1 for the boys. 13k healing to Simple's like 8. So you can see the difference, right? The sustain required to keep the Malga in play, even with Cardiac Overdrive, is pretty extreme. Requires you to play definitely a certain way on this Kiriko and use those Kitsune rushes a bit more defensively. And Vistola is so mindful about playing out of line of sight, like being very careful on that swing timing. And you can see here, right? Very close in damage dealt. And there's that slight healing difference that appears to account, I think, for a lot of this. And I want to point out that, Quartz has a ton of damage at the start of the game, but is not getting those final blows. Whereas Jwoo is just finishing off these kills that are being set up, doing a great job at combining with Shockwave, making sure that both of those DPSs have been credited with those eliminations. Really impressive Tracer play. Just after a Genji showing where we maybe hoped for more from him, showing he's still got it where it counts.
Like I talked about, I would have loved to see Quartz kind of start off on the Sojourn. I think it's just a way better look than the Freya there on that map, especially after the success he's had with the Sojourn on a lot of the series. And then, maybe if you could have tried something like, is there a way you could have played like, a BAP in your back line, right? For, when they want to try and go in, onto the Ramatra, you have at least that immortality field there. You would have had the Amp Matrix for the Sojourn to shoot from. So I think there were some options for Twisted Minds there, but shouldn't take away from how good VP was there on that map playing the Maga.
Curious to see how the rest of the series pans out in terms of map picks, but VP know they're going to be up against the wall here with Twisted Minds, getting to call all the shots on our next couple of maps. Don't go too far. We'll have that map number 4 for you right after this. All right, gang, here we go. The pick is, in fact, Circuit Royal for our 4th map of this series. Twisted Minds decided to take us to the long, windy, and very vertical map. And we've got a Baptiste ban for Twisted Minds straight away. VP respond with a Freya ban here. Something that is maybe less in the wheelhouse for Twisted Minds, but definitely feels like we're headed for a Sojourn pitched battle.
They're probably like, well, thank you. We were talking about how Quartz obviously played the Freya there, can play the Freya. It's not like he can, but he was so good on the Sojourn. I don't know why, especially it's now like Sojourn's pretty bad on Runasapi, can most certainly play it. So now potentially turning it into a Sojourn head-to-head. I kind of like this now for Twisted Minds. The BAP gone, right? So the BAP being gone, I wonder, like, do you feel like it, okay, I was gonna say, do you feel like it takes like some of the Alari comps off the board? It looks like maybe at least we'll see what happens with Twisted Minds on offense, but for VP on defense, they opt to not go with an Alari.
Still on the attack side, seems fairly reasonable. The raw healing output the Funny Astro can put down, and also Twisted Minds play up on that first corner with the healing pylon. That's going to be very challenging for Virtus.pro to clear. Also, of course, gives them that extra pressure. The May pick here for Jwoo, something that can obviously give you some room to fall back behind and also allow you to manufacture those defense-sided pick opportunities with catch-outs. We are going to have the Iliari here, of course, Simple on deck, and as we expected, it's going to be a Sojourn battle. Twisted Minds fighting to get into that grand final. Another crack at Alcatsia, who look just a cut above right now, but they're getting the extra reps here in the lower bracket. Perhaps that's not such a bad thing for them. Ice block used very early there by Jwoo, who was caught inside a vortex. Vistola is looking worse for wear already.
Yes, they're going to have to, back on up as Vistola already loses basically half of his HP. You're going to have to heal this up here you're going to have an advantage in terms of the poke, right? For Twisted Minds, with the Sim, with the Sojourn, and obviously the Alari in the mix now too.
There's a Maywall attempted to catch. Doesn't really seem to play out the way that they were hoping though. Virtus.pro have that dissipate, and Quartz now very much gotten into the cookie jar. On that high ground, a good spot, but Shockwave is able to pick him out. It is a very important kill as a relief valve, but Yubi still deals with Shockwave. Gala can't yet. He has to get forward here, make use of that Maywall to try and keep Pistola standing. Twisted Minds happen to, by the looks of things, take that trade. They've got some momentum here to work with. Now up in this corner, Sim TP straight to the backside. This is going to be hard to anticipate for Virtus.pro. Maywall to try and shut this down. Kitsune Rush already deployed here for Gala though, and Twisted Minds have to respect this. Pistola punching, reaching forward. Disrupt the shot thrown down at his feet though, and he can't advance too much further, but the Maywall cuts off the healing for KSA. Eventually, Ramatra on the attack side has to give up the Ghost.
Yeah, I think KSA maybe thought they were going to have like an orbital array, or Funny Astro was going to be able to see him over the top of that Maywall, but not able to get that line of sight. So you do end up losing the Ram there. For TM, the nice Maywall there, like you talked about, that goes down on top of the Sim TP. I don't know if you would have taken the TP if you were Yubi, but still kind of making it very difficult to even get any use out of it here. Is going to be with a Captive Sun, a nice angle here via the teleporter.
Now the Sim TP gets is Simple and Quartz in a pretty powerful spot, but last time Shockwave were able to dig them out. That is a devastating Sim wall though. Shockwave's going to play so dangerously now to get into it. Blizzard though deployed. This is tough for KSA. Yubi also frozen up in the midst here. Simple's Captive Sun looking for some value off of that, but Quartz's overclock seems to get them over the line. The Annihilation ultimately can't be punished. There's a freeze on KSA, but that ultimate doesn't get turned off as they all pile in on him. And Twisted Minds get exactly the fight they're looking for, despite some abilities that would theoretically counter their style.
Well, VP pushes up there, Mitch. They end up having their sound barrier, and they end up using the Blizzard. But it's like the Sim wall that kind of separates players, right? Not able to kind of exactly get enough damage down. And then also the Captive Sun that starts to pop on a few players, puts down some damage. It's going to be Shockwave here, just coming out of that spawn door, trying to use the overclock, trying to open it up because this position's so hard to break.
Yeah, but they're asking so much from Shockwave right now. He's going to deal with the Iari and that Sojourn threat at the same time. That is very challenging. And he had to take such an aggressive angle in order to do so. Twisted Minds have play lines available to them that, hitherto, or just not on the table. Being able to, take these high ground, these set up these off angles again for Simple to play alongside Quartz. It's not the Kiriko side fight style, but it feels similar in that regard. Simple though is bowled over. Decent spot for Quartz to play from here, but Virtus.pro just ignoring that Sojourn behind them and trying to charge forward now. Jwoo on this Sim. And they use that TP aggressively to wipe Twisted Minds.
Yeah, they bring in a Sim of their own, right? Just kind of get past that overpass that KSA and Quartz were holding up on that high ground. So you will get a hold here now for Virtus.pro. They start to slow it down a little bit, get control of the pace of the game. Let's see how their Sim look kind of fares though, right? We've seen Jwoo kind of go to the Sim at times. It hasn't looked amazing, but I know here, completely different map than some of the ones we've seen in the past. Maybe they're able to make it work.
Simple keeps Jwoo honest there. Headshot. Pretty significant amount of damage for a backliner. There's Quartz charging forward now. Overclock is at the ready. The question is, who's his intended target? Captive Sun just whiffs. Doesn't quite connect, I think, in the way that Simple would have liked. But it does leave Pistola pretty isolated here with an Annihilation. Staying alive, though, he's able to do in Virtus.pro with that little wraparound, that off-angle position set up by their own Sim, allows her to gobble up Simple. Simwall in play, though. Pistola having to dance it now. The Annihilation for KSA might be a problem for him, though. Good sound barrier timing for Fixer. That is exactly what the Doctor ordered. And it may not even be enough even then. Shockwave's down. Quartz able to find the victory here in that Sojourn head-to-head. And KSA, a lot of pressure generated, but that Annihilation now times out, and a Simwall means that there's no go for Twisted Minds. They've been stopped in their tracks.
I think you're just going to back up for a beat here for Twisted Minds, and you're going to come back with this orbital ray, right? You're going to have the orbital ray to use inside of the opposing Kitsune Rush. We'll see as KSA takes a load of damage here, and they lose Simple. I mean, this is pretty bad now for TM.
Simple may have been too far forward in that engagement. Jwoo, those really fragile to a Ramatra that could just swing in the front line inside that orbital ray. His turret, though, posthumously earns him a elimination on Yubi of all people. So once again, Virtus.pro are able to hold under this pressure of Twisted Minds, and now the attackers don't have a huge ultimate to hang their hat on. This is really going to come down to Quartz finding an opportunity, but against a railgun of Shockwave, that is a tall order.
No, it's that early pick off there onto Simple. Is Simple now over to the Kiri. where you lose some of that extra damage with the Illari, and then even with that orbital right, you're fighting inside of the opposing team's Kitsune rush with that Ramatra. Very difficult to take out as Shockwave here has that overclock, takes a big shot early on, has to back up for just a beat.
He's topped up pretty quickly, but that window created by Quartz hitting a headshot on Shockwave gives Twisted Minds enough time to disengage away from the overclock, and now they've got one of their own to bring into the fight. Very important damage there from Quartz, even if it didn't result in a kill. Allows Twisted Minds to still be able to fight at full strength here, Matt. Disrupt the shot to try and shoot through that Ramatra shield, and in they come. Quartz TP into the backside. They're going to have to be quick about this one. Very rapidly transitioning to his own backline, and Yubi just lingered too long in the enemy quarter. Quartz has to back away now. This annihilation from Pistola threatening with a sound barrier combined by Fixer. Virtus.pro have all the answers right now. And Twisted Minds is trying to go in 1s and 2s in these ultimate combinations. They're out of time. We're heading into overtime here, and there won't be a Twisted Minds left to contest this cart. This is a stellar defensive effort now from Virtus.pro. What a showing. Jaywu, 11 eliminations here. Huge damage for Stola. Great Ramatra play. We haven't seen Virtus.pro try and mirror these front lines against Twisted Minds up until this point.
Oh.
But now Pistola busts out the Ramatra. It looks fantastic.
And it makes you wonder why they just haven't, matched some of these front lines for a bit, right? We know that these are heroes that Pistola can play, and now you start to mix in some of that sim work here from Jaywu and starts to even things up just a bit as VP. I mean, a reverse sweep here would be insane, right? I know just they gotta get a good push here on offense early on. I'm curious if Twisted Minds has anything different planned here comp-wise on the defensive end.
Look at that damage mitigation. I rarely draw attention to this, but the damage mitigation difference between Pistola and KSA is monumental. 6,000 damage in between them. And that's Pistola just cleverly cycling his cooldowns. I mean, you could maybe like attribute some of that to like favorable positioning on that high ground. But I mean, think about how much 6,000 HP is in terms of like how many, heroes that is. Virtus.pro in a good position now on the attack side. No, they don't even need they just, really just need the one checkpoint here to get themselves sorted. Let's listen in.
Don't care. Have Illari. Do you want to go sim?
Yeah. Maybe Juno Ilya. Take on Juno Ilya.
Yeah.
Shim.
Let's just walk out and TP on right side, maybe.
I'm going Shim.
Yeah.
See that comp. That will come.
Ram, Illari.
Sim.
Yeah.
Illari's top left, I think.
Shim Illari the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just ignore them.
Yeah.
You want to ignore?
Oh, Illari,
I can keep it right top.
Yeah, I can. I'm ready.
Okay, we can TP. Okay.
I'm ready.
Fight. Juno.
Juno.
One side.
Sim. Get me. I'm not form.
Yeah. Illari.
I need help.
Illari low after.
Illari.
Drop.
Stay living.
Yeah.
Just keep trading. We come back fast.
Little bit slow.
Down me. 소장.
Juno.
Max on.
Nice.
No, get me.
Juno going there.
Juno. Oh, you!
Oh, no
Forward into that.
pump.
Oh, maybe can't.
Oh, push more. Yeah.
Shim here. Shim close.
Wait, we're down a little bit.
You hear a pretty scrappy first fight there, Matt, but Virtus.pro calling that they're happy to take these trades, favorable for them with that spawn advantage.
Yeah, it's VP. It's not been pretty here early on, right? But still just slowly moving up the map. The TP in there from Jaywu just goes in, fires a shot, then back out, just causing a little bit of chaos. You see the turrets coming through the TP here for Yubi on the other side, and they get KSA. They've done such a great job of being able to get KSA these last few maps, right? I know looking back to Runasapi and then here now on Circuit, they've done a nice job of isolating the tank.
Yeah, Simple's gone back to that defense side, Illari here, which obviously makes sense in terms of the pylon placement, but he threw one out in the open.
Was that interrupted?
Captive Sun. Okay.
It was used. We heard it burst there for a second, and it looked like either stunned or canceled potentially. So it looked like maybe that was actually a spear that comes in from Pistola. You lose Simple. This is brutal here. I mean, VP just dominating this map.
Feels like Simple might be trying to do a little bit too much on this map in general. Getting caught pretty far forward in some of those earlier fights, and here there's a Captive Sun that is either neutralized or just it's deployed on a bit of an odd timing anyway. When Twisted Minds look like they're still trying to regroup. Dangerous game state now with Virtus.pro. 5 ultimates to spend Twisted Minds have to go massive here, and of course, in a fight like this, it comes down to a key first pick. Both Shockwave and Quartz know this well. Both are trying to play safe while creating some opportunities now to find that all-important first pick of the timing. Shockwave, I mean, that is reaction time, pure and simple. It's unclear how he saw Quartz there, but regardless, that shot rings true, and there is nothing Twisted Minds can do about this. Virtus.pro, we're going to take us to a fifth map, a far cry from the way that this series went last time these two teams played. Nothing like the 3-0 we saw early on here. Twisted Minds, they've said they're peaking at just the right time, but Virtus.pro, they've still got plenty to show them.
I mean, a far cry from just the first two maps in this series, right? The first two maps just kind of dominated by TM, and then VP just storm on back through Runasapi, through here on circuit. And now, I mean, hey, we got a series on our hands, right? As we go to this, fifth and final map, TM on the verge of getting reverse swept here by VP. Would be a big shocker.
It's staggering. Vistola has 2 deaths over the course of the entire map. 2 deaths. KSA is at like 6 or 7, and I think Simple as well. 7 deaths, top of the team. Really hard to keep that Liari play, I guess, safe. Disrespecting perhaps Virtus.pro somewhat. They're really able to punish on so many of these occasions. Shockwave, man, I've got to put it out there. He's been doing some serious work. It was definitely Jwoo on that Runasapi map, but the Sojourn play has been sublime, and you can start to see why we saw a ban of the Freya here. Shockwave more than happy to match Sojourns here against Quartz, and they've given Virtus.pro a real shot, a real crack at taking Arcadia, which is, if you remember, a team that they haven't had the opportunity to test themselves against in this bracket yet. They dropped the Twisted Minds in that first round and have to submarine their way through the lower bracket here. Virtus.pro showing us finally a little bit of the spark that made them a top team, a team to watch here in stage 1.
Yes, I think they're doing a much better job specifically here at just targeting KSA. Like, KSA wants to play a little bit aggressive there on the Ram, and he's been really good at it, and they've kind of used that sim in combination with it. But when he steps up, they are punishing it now, where it's a huge difference, right? You lose your tank, it obviously makes some of the flanks and things that Simple does a little bit harder, right? If Simple is gonna like flank with a Quartz or a Yubi, right? You need to punish the front line for not having a second healer there available for KSA, and I think they're doing a better job of it now. And like you've been alluding to, we're gonna see Kings Row.
Look, I mean, Circuit Royal is not a map that naturally lends itself to flank style gameplay, right? I think Twisted Minds artificially created that with sim TPs forward on the attack side to get to the stairs and start to create an off angle, but it's still difficult. Interesting that they sort of choose that map if that's the style that they're going for, but Kings Row is definitely a home ground for them, and VP knew this coming into the series, especially dropping the first map. They knew they would have to win on Kings Row, or at least one of the map picks of Twisted Minds. It turned out to be 2 of them here, and it is a 100% win percentage on hybrid. And I just want to point out,
good.
Yeah, over the course of this entire stage, and we're talking about a stage that features teams such as Alcadia, that is astonishing. This is the kind of map that they're even able to beat the aforementioned Alcadia on, right? They did it dominantly in their previous game. That upper final, yes, Twisted Minds ended up losing that game, but they were 2-0 in terms of checkpoints. They full held Alcadia on Kings Row. Virtus.pro are going to have to dig deeper, honestly, than ever before to make it into the final.
I think, though, they may have found something over these last 2 maps, like playing this Maga and Orisa, focusing down KSA some more. I'm curious where TM decides to go, ban wise.
Do they?
I mean,
do they target
what
a Vistola Diva here? They're obviously in a situation where this map lends itself perfectly to sim TPs forward or Kiriko Tracer fighting on the extremities. You can't really target Shockwave, I don't think, because of the hero pool overlap between him and Quartz. I don't think that is a possibility. I don't think you want to set up a Genji scenario by banning Tracer of all things. That seems fairly absurd. Maybe look over in the support direction.
Yeah, or I was do you think they maybe for VP, right? Do you want to take Pharah off the board, right? We've seen Yubi go over to the Pharah at times. So all right, so we do have the bans that come in. Interesting one. TM, they get rid of the Lucio, right? So we saw VP do this in map number 1. We talk about how Funny Astro a little bit more evolved than that at the moment, and then VP gets rid of the Cassidy. So no Cassidy available. It'll be Soj and Freya probably for most of the game.
So something that we noticed, I think, on Runasapi especially, is that And Funny Astro is on the sorry, excuse me, when he's not on the Lucio, right, he's a little bit easier to sort of target down. I think that the Juno was something that was exploited pretty heavily by Jaywu, of course, in that previous map. I think that's something worth pointing out, is that Runasapi was where Jaywu had a great game. It was also where we saw that Juno play. The Juno Kiriko style has been something that Twisted Minds have been trying to bring into a number of these maps, and they might be looking for an opening here. Cassidy's been taken off the table. That also potentially means that it's a little bit easier maybe for like a Tracer to get in. You don't have to sweat the risk of hindrance grenade really messing up your day. So there's definitely a few angles that can sort of be taken here, I think, if you're Virtus.pro, but this is still a pretty difficult scenario to overcome.
Well, I also think if you're Twisted Minds, this is probably banking on that, like, your Juno Kiri is better than theirs, right? Like, Fix has been really good on the Lucio. They've been able to play a lot of that throughout some of these maps they end up winning, where, like, okay, force them to play the Juno Kiri as well, and maybe you feel like you have a slight advantage in that capacity. I think that's where the logic would kind of kick in for the TM Lucio ban here.
We saw the Juno Kiri comps pitted against each other on Busan earlier on, and I was just noting the difference in a Simple's output, what he was able to achieve on that Kiri. Might be a Baptiste option. This was obviously banned away previously from Twisted Minds. Obviously another great pick for Simple. Really important just to have that massive boost in throughput when it comes to those Amp Matrix plays.
It does feel like, though, Mitch, if you're a VP and your hope is to, like, win this, obviously, and then go up and have a good fight against Alcatia, you need some type of, like, Symmetra look, right? I think we see it there, on circuit, right? And I definitely think it was impactful. But, like, on a lot of these other maps, right, you're going to need to, like, be able to, like, work it in at times where for VP, so they don't go with, like, a Juno Kiri on defense. They'll actually go with a BAP Kiri here. And Shockwave will go back to the Freya.
All right, let's have a listen to Twisted Minds. Home ground match point for both sides. Let's see what they've got cooking.
I play aggressive, okay? I'm shooting for
Chris is still right.
They're all tanks, spam here, have no form. Uri and me is fine. Uri someone.
Yeah, reloading. You're okay. You have speed.
Okay, come on, kill one. Kill speed.
Press top now.
Come on, carry. Man, kill him. Okay, Tim,
Race behind.
Wait,
okay. Free behind.
Just put it one and no 10. Nice.
Chris is still behind.
3 point, come. Back on top.
Aman.
No recon, Teresa, no recon. Quick lamp. Nice.
Press top right.
Let's go, more, guys, more.
Yeah, go shoot the spawn.
That was about as clean as you'd expect from Twisted Minds on King's Row, but my goodness, Quartz with a very long-range pick set up on Fixer. This Freya play has been everything Twisted Minds have needed to blow Virtus.pro open early in the map.
Yeah, now we'll see. Now Twisted Minds, you heard their cons, right? They want to, like, kind of push up, try and get some of this position, try and take advantage as you still okay, so they're still going to run out with a Juno Kiri here. Now for VP in combination, right? They were playing the Arisa before, so a little bit of a change up now in the second part of the map is you obviously won't have the immortality field with that Baptiste like it offers. As you see, KSA gets quite low there and they have to use it, but you'll have that orbital ray, which will be massive when it comes through, as Amp Matrix used here by Simple out in the street, so everybody's going to scatter.
They were trying to play an off angle and almost one clips Yubi there, forced him back to safety, but that Sim is still going to be very charged up at that front line. A legitimate threat in terms of damage. Quartz caught though inside a Vortex, and that is really going to slow things up now for Twisted Minds. They've only got frontline pressure, and I heard a bowler shot come out there from Shockwave. It helped catch out Simple, who was trying to shelter in his immortality field. Virtus.pro find a stop. This is good. Their defense on that circle reel was massive. They can create something here or bleed some big clock in this first choke. That is going to yield dividends for them later.
What do you think about Simple going over to the Ana here, right? You do have a cleanse on the other side. I kind of like the BAP, personally. I think having that, immortality field, obviously extremely impactful. I mean, I guess Nano here, another great option, but I mean, Quartz takes out Jaywu. That's massive.
Yeah, again, it's a Quartz pick that starts to fight off well for Twisted Minds. Fixer on an off angle. Kitsune rush from behind, and he just has enough throughput there to keep Vastola alive. That haste on the cooldowns lets Vastola get back in an Nemesis form when he needs it, but Quartz is still a problem. Simple's never going to win that fight. Fixer gets the better of him with a kunai where it hurts, and Vastola will be kept standing. Annihilation won't be required here, and it's very good peripheral damage from Fixer, making it hard for KSA to just emanate any threat whatsoever. He's going to commit an Annihilation to this fight where Twisted Minds are very short-handed, and it might ultimately be a waste. But Vistola opts to annihilate himself and then doesn't have Virtus.pro's backline there to help him.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Fix actually just kind of like TPs through the wall back to Vistola. He starts to kind of like walk around the outside of the shop. And never actually ends up making it back. I don't think he would have been able to heal him up, right? I mean, there's a lot of damage coming down at that time, but that's a huge loss there for VP. The cart moves all the way up here for Twisted Minds. That's like worst case scenario.
Not what you want to see at all. Virtus.pro now, like to get into the fight. It's going to be an orbital ray deployed for Funny Astro. Try and get Twisted Minds over the line. Simple got caught out though by a wayward Javelin. Vistola still fighting aggressively in that front line. Shockwave though dealt with, caught another pick of this Freya play. Has been picture perfect. And now the Russian Gala's direction. He knows there's not much to be done here. A stall attempt for Jwoo likely to be cut short here as the Pulsar Torpedoes desperately seek to keep the Tracer in the fight. Twisted Minds know they have another wave and maybe a nano if it's needed. They got that checkpoint amidst that chaotic engagement. And you can hear very stressed, very tense comms from Twisted Minds. They know how much is on the line here.
But you can see, Mitch, like when they don't get rid of like KSA, right, and UB is still alive, there's no way they keep Vistola up. Even with getting that first pick there, it didn't even matter.
It's going to be even harder now where a nano is going over towards UB. So just in case he needed more damage to try and break that front line down, Vistola really couldn't stand that extra level of scrutiny. Again, Fixer often finds himself in the backline of Self-Suzu here, but he's going to be out of the action without key cooldowns. And that means Twisted Minds have that tempo now to work with. Momentum built, bowler shot at the ready. Sim wall also available. So Virtus.pro are going to have to full commit to the cart past the sim wall to contest this.
I mean, this is an ugly defense here for VP as Jwoo, though, that is a sick pulse bomb connect on the Simple. Not even sure how he saw him.
Doesn't matter though, Simple's died first in many of these fights on the Ana, and it hasn't been enough to slow down Twisted Minds. This is classic Twisted Minds, exactly what you expect. It's written on the box when we get to King's Row. And an orbital ray will be enough to get them there. 2 minutes 46 on the clock. Twisted Minds steamroll VP's defense.
I mean, 246 is an eternity to finish with here. So, although VP making a pretty nice run back in this series, right, winning 2 in a row, we're like worried, like, okay, what is the confidence level of Twisted Minds? They just kind of just run through them here on offense. Twisted Minds, just, I mean, you see Funny Astro that doesn't even die there, and look, KSA, they're doing a great job keeping him up as well. Only really Simple was the one getting punished, but doesn't really result in any like positive, you know, fight wins here for VP.
See the stats, they are telling much of the story here. KSA being unleashed, but it's that 13 eliminations for course, and I would suggest almost half of those are happening to start these fights. Those are picks that kind of invalidate ultimate advantage for Virtus.pro. When they have to fight short-handed, it's been a problem. Twisted Minds, though, their conversion in 4v5 fights has been very, very good. The less mobile Ana that Simple's been playing has sometimes been exploited, caught out maybe by a vortex slowing them up or something similar, and they've still been able to steamroll through. Funny Astro has been able to provide the lion's share of the healing where it's been needed, and Quartz has been doubling down on this damage roll. Over to the Soj on the defense side now, if we're feeling more comfortable at that extreme range. Virtus.pro, I wonder if it's going to be a bit of a lethal cosplay here for Jwoo. Sadly, no Hanzo in EMEA.
No.
Sad.
The EMEA, you know, they kind of stick to the EMEA script, right? We don't have much variation at times here, but some top level plays. They're gonna go with the D.Va. I think D.Va is like a pretty strong option, right? I mean, we see Alcaxia kind of play D.Va pretty much all of the time, right? Even with in combination the Sim.
That is amazing pressure that Jwoo's been able to put down. He is surrounded by 5 Twisted Minds players. If he was Wrecking Ball, he'd be having a lot of shield. Instead, he's just one little tracer and is able to drag down the Sojourn. That's with Quartz's extra mobility. Now, the Twisted Minds kind of get declawed a little bit by Jwoo. Should be pretty easy to drag them down one by one, and Jwoo's done that. Now finding Simple. This tracer play, exactly what you're looking for now, and Jwoo was playing without a lot of backup, without a lot of support, and Fixer wasn't really in there with him in that moment.
He's trying to drag them to a victory. Yeah, he is trying to drag them here across the line on King's Row as his Tracer play, just Blinks gets right into the back line, able to kill 2 players there. They kick things off, right? Because the back line is not really protected, right? I know the Juno Kiri back line, especially the Juno, you can target out. I don't want to say extremely easily, but I know easier than a lot of the other supports. As you see Jaywu putting some pressure onto Astra right away.
Vixar right now is playing the DPS Kiriko. He's got about 5.5k damage to Simple's 1.7k. A little bit less healing than Simple, but that's the game plan. You can see how well it works. These picks are looking fantastic. Side fights favoring Virtus.pro in a big way now. This is a map that's built for those flank opportunities, and Virtus.pro are capitalizing. This is good. With Twisted Minds having such a robust time bank, Virtus.pro had to be pretty bloody expedient here.
And we see it from Jaywoo's perspective there, right? He gets into the back line, Twisted Minds, they TP on in. If VP is able to survive the damage that comes in, and then Twisted Minds is TPing back out or, getting on out, they're walking back into Jaywoo on Tracer, right? Where there are a bunch of low targets, and he's able to just pick up 1 or 2, and then VP can get aggressive.
Simple on the off angle, able to at least control their health pack and flank route for the time being. But Virtus.pro are always going to be asking a question. Stick there for Jaywoo onto the start, or rather onto KSA. Staved off here, whether by Suzu or just by healing. The front liner for Virtus.pro is still going to be having to deal with KSA. Vortex, Quartz is caught in it now, trying to back away here. Twisted Minds, just their back line has been completely compromised here by Vistola, who really looks comfortable here on the Ramatra we've barely seen any of so far. Annihilation, double orbital ray plate here. Funny Astro down to Shockwave. Virtus.pro's attack side is looking every bit as lethal as it has to now. There's Vistola again. It's another Vortex, forcing a swift step forward from Simple. That's got to be a checkpoint for VP, and a whopping time bank to spare.
And that's Simple's rush there towards the end of that as well, just kind of chucked in, as it seemed like there was no ability for TM to end up actually winning that fight, as this is a horrible scenario for Twisted Minds. They put together that great offense, but now here on defense, they've got nothing going.
Solar Force back for the time being. KSA really trying to establish a foothold on this corner, but there's Shockwave again. Yubi not aware of an off angle potentially. Trying to play from behind KSA, but he left himself exposed to the sides. Jaywoo already threatening a wraparound even deeper now. Towards that mega room perhaps, and there it is. Funny Astro exploitable. Moving off of the Lucio over towards that Juno. Or even Simple. Getting a shellacking from Jaywoo. Nobody really spared to deal with this threatening Tracer, who has yet another pulse bomb developed already. SimTP used there, and then Twisted Minds cannot stop this avalanche from Virtus.pro. They're going to post a very impressive attack time themselves at this rate. King's Row is going to go all the way. What a fitting way it would be for VP if they got out of this series, winning on Twisted Minds' home map. Be the only team to serve them a hybrid map loss this stage.
Did you see anybody turn and look at Jaywoo throughout the entire course of that? Exactly. I mean, he's able to get into the back line, and Twisted Minds, their idea is to just, push forward and, take out some of the remaining members of VP and not really worry about him, but they're not able to do so. They're walking back into him, basically half HP, and Jaywoo's been dominant.
Twisted Minds can't touch the objective, and still nobody is looking at Jaywoo with Annihilation here for Vistola, looking to punch a hole through KSA in the rest of the defensive setup. Swift step forward yet again from Simple. It's signature at this point, but Virtus.pro are able to tame Twisted Minds very much inside home territory. These time banks are going to be looking awfully similar, and we're going to be running to extra innings most likely. Still Twisted Minds find an opportunity. An orbital ray, Funny Astro doesn't want to hold for the next round because it won't be at his disposal. Has to find a way to make use of it here, but that requires him to get out of spawn. Simple's down, Funny Astro dead again before he get a chance to deploy that ultimate. And Shockwave, again, just a nuisance. This has slowed up a little bit. Now those time banks are even, and KSA's been a little bit hard to shift.
And they kill Vistola. And by killing Vistola, I think that's why Twisted Minds decides not to invest this orbital ray. And it's quite massive that they hold on to it, right? You use it there, you probably win that fight anyway in the same type of circumstance. But now you don't have an orbital ray to counteract Gala's. And now this is way more interesting.
Big stick, that's Yubi out of the picture. Already Twisted Minds had trouble matching Tracer. They don't have anyone to deal with this flank pressure, and now they don't have the mobility that the Sim would offer, but again, Vistola gets burned down. That's been an issue for VP. In the longer fights, Jaywoo might be called upon to do a little bit more, go a little bit further, go further beyond, and it's going to be Quartz barely staying alive. Jaywoo accounts for him on his own, but in the meantime, he's not done enough, or rather the rest of VP haven't been able to follow up his presence. Twisted Minds again, able to push them back. And this is now starting to get dangerous. That was VP's ult bank getting burnt through.
Yeah, this is looking rough now, right? That's bola shot used there as well. Orbital ray. You're gonna have a bola shot here for Twisted Minds, and you're also going to have their Kitsune rush. You're gonna get like below a minute here as well as what? That is a 6 shot there. Some extra damage goes down on the Yubi, and he gets taken out, and you lose Quartz.
Yeah, Quartz got set up on there by Shockwave, hitting a nice little bolt, and then it was Jaywu working his way into the back line. Simple knows now he's got to do something to break the deadlock here, but Shockwave handles him comfortably. Pulse bomb there for Jaywu, not needed apparently. His Funny Astro was still down, and now Virtus.pro surely have a crack at this. But they're running down to about 1 minute left in time bank. This makes things a little less comfortable when it comes to extra innings. Caught the long range, bowler shot deployed now, very much worked his way into the backline, but can't contest the cart from where he stands. And so Virtus.pro lose about 1.5 minutes on that final couple of meters.
That's huge, right? I mean, VP, they get to that end goal, like, about like 3:40 on the clock, right? And then Twisted Minds ends up winning that fight, wins a second consecutive fight, and gets that time bank all the way down to 1:09. I mean, that is a huge defensive stand there for Twisted Minds, where VP was looking like they were going to set a better time and they were going to keep rolling on offense, but Twisted Minds clutches up.
There's 2 things at play here. Jaywu's playing Tracer and is pretty uncontested. No one's bothering to look at him. 3 deaths. But because Yubi is playing the Sim, KSA has a massive advantage in the front line. It's very hard for Pistola to stay alive. 7 deaths is really not too bad at all, considering the pressure that he was under. But Virtus.pro need the staying power of their tank on the cart to sort of finish the map. So while they have great flank pressure and they're killing the enemy DPSs constantly, when Yubi is allowed to stay alive for any sort of stretch of time, Pistola has to either double back for healing or just die on the cart.
So we'll see VP on offense go back to that diva play yet again. Yeah, I liked this look, right? You're able to also get like fix into the back line with Jaywu, cause a lot of problems. This is an interesting switch up though. It's going to be simple playing the Brig. So typically we see it's Funny Astro, but the Brig is obviously really good against Tracer, really good against Diva.
Yeah, the idea is to give yourself, like you said, a Tracer answer without forcing yourself to mirror it. Giving yourself the option to go to Sim. This feels like a bit of a compromise, though, for Twisted Minds. Let's see if they can make it work. They now sort of lack flexibility to create plays, and they don't have to continue their rush, but Rally can be pretty clutch in a pinch. And Shockwave is down pretty early on. There's more defensive slant on the composition for Twisted Minds. Working out so far pretty darn well. Pistola's also such an easy target to farm whip shots and inspire healing off the Simple. Definitely seems to suit him. This guy can kind of play anything.
It also makes it so much harder, right? When that TP comes in and then Quartz gets up on the high ground for like the Diva to get up there and try and make a play for the Sojourn on the other side, because like you just have that Brig there just wailing on you, right? Repair packs over towards the Sojourn. God, that is Jaywu just eating a railgun shot. So it's very difficult to dive into this Brig. This is a great swap here from TM.
It's been working perfectly here. Twisted Minds really don't seem to be feeling much of this pressure from Virtus.pro, and now they're in overtime. They need to find a touch manufacture, an opening, a Hail Mary perhaps. But Gala caught by a Sim turret is handled efficiently by Quartz, and Jaywu unfortunately has been doing the most, and the most is not enough when you're up against Twisted Minds on King's Row. That is a astonishing defense performance from them. And now all they need to do, Matt, swoop in, take 1 checkpoint, and take their seat at the table in our grand final.
The Brig swap there is just so smart from Twisted Minds. An idea that VP was going to come out playing that Diva, right? I know, being able to get some of the high ground with the Diva, play a little bit more with the Tracer and the Kiri in the back line. And the Brig just ruins any plan of that. Don't think you're going to see it on offense here from TM. I imagine that I know VP potentially goes like a Ram here to kick things off on D, but on Twisted Minds defense, that's an amazing swap, a great call.
Now, Twisted Minds attack side, a little challenging at first. They didn't exactly have like an easy option to kill backliners, whereas Jaywu, of course, on the Tracer was incredible in that endeavor. Virtus.pro also will take a more defensive stance here. May is going to be brought in yet again to try and catch Twisted Minds out, to try and punish these individuals, and also just block the choke to buy themselves a little bit of time. Also punish anybody who walks into the hotel on the left side of screen here. That's an easy ice wall for Jaywu. Twisted Minds had to be aware of this. It does mean, though, that their backline now has time. There's no pressure anymore from like a flanking Tracer that could threaten to undo them. Fixer, though, could decide to reprise his DPS Kiriko performance of the first half of this map. But make no mistake, folks, they're up against the wall, Virtus.pro. The deck stacked against them. Is there an ace in the sleeve that can bail them out of that situation? Let's go. 2 minutes 35 on the clock for Twisted Minds to attack. 1 checkpoint is all they need.
Yeah, and it's TP straight in there as KSA will get purchased on the point. There's some shots going to Shockwave. Fortunate to be able to live through those.
Still around the open, and you can see now with that backline pressure gone, it's comfortable for Corti to swings on out, but KSA is down to the front line. Jaewoo now wants to get a bit more further forward. He knows that Yubi is very charged. He knows he doesn't need to fight, but building up a Blizzard, getting some damage, and not committing. Definitely the players, Twisted Minds, have to wait for their tank.
And Simple playing the BAP here, right? Because if KSA gets like split off from the rest of the team, you're gonna have that immortality field being able to save that Ram as it'll be KSA stepping up on the point yet again. Vistola gonna drop from the high ground.
Again, KSA struggling. Both tanks taking a beating, to be fair, but Shockwave's got a pretty safe position to play from here. Does note Simple off in the distance on his Baptiste. Can't really worry about it for the time being. Needs to stop this TP pressure that could come into their backline. Vertical shots down on KSA. Good pressure. KSA has to take the Nemesis form and try and fight Vistola, who's not giving him much of an engagement until he knows he has the edge. Quartz here.
Amp Matrix up here.
Trying to match the impact of Shockwave. Immortality field burnt, and here is that Amp Matrix now. Simple opts to use it on the point. Everybody can benefit from it now, and Jaewoo is down. No ice block available to be used. They got burned too early. Boulder Shot has some AoE splash out towards Shockwave, and he has no healing. This has to be it. The last stand of Virtus.pro is brought down, and Twisted Minds will have what is surely their right to take, a spot in the grand final. Alcatzia awaits them to renew the rivalry that's always been a dogfight. But finally, Virtus.pro have shown a little bit more of that grit, that stamina that should stand them in good stead as our 3rd seed in EMEA and our mid-season championship.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think although it is a loss for Virtus.pro, they prove that they can play at the level of Twisted Minds and Alcatzia. A bunch of different looks here from VP we haven't seen before. And they almost complete the reverse sweep, but yet again, Twisted Minds too good on Hybrid, too good on King's Row. They hold on through a pretty valiant effort there from Jaewoo and co. To get to the grand final.
Yeah, some things I've really liked. Seeing Vistola turn onto the Ramatra, some great play. I think that you could not ask for any more from Jaewoo on the Virtus.pro side of things. Playing the Mei in that extra innings makes perfect sense. Slows the game down, but doesn't maybe allow for that same level of skill expression from Jaewoo. Maybe part of him wondering if maybe Tracer might have still been a better option. There wasn't enough pressure on that back line of Twisted Minds, but man, top to bottom, this TM team looking ready now to throw down in the grand final. But before we get there, we've got much to talk about after this 5-map banger. We're headed to our desk to break down the action.
Isn't there so much to break down?
Yes.
Twisted Minds finishing it off on King's Row. Basically their home map. They've just been so consistent on it. But VP made them sweat. They made them work for it. Mounting their comeback on Runasapi, where they got to ban Symmetra, obviously. And then we saw them taking that mirror match. And somehow it looked extremely good, which just left us wondering, why didn't you just do that from the get-go?
Oh, well, hindsight is 2020, Zoe.
That's right. We get paid for hindsight here on the desk,
I
Johnny.
wish they would have just done that, but yeah, the Ramatra swap was just a huge turning point in the series, obviously, and Runasapi here as well, of course. It just changes the entire dynamic of how Virtus.pro plays, because if you consider some of the tanks that they played early on in the series, they played the D.Va on Sanctuary. Naturally, D.Va, you know, you're on a bit of a time limit. You have to go fast, you have to dive in, you have to get picks, otherwise you're gonna get beaten down. You play the Mauga with Adventure, but without the Cardiac Overdrive, Twisted Minds can play around it and they'll beat down the Mauga. So you have to play with pace with all these tank picks. And the Junker Queen, do I even need to say anything? Like, you gotta go fast. The Ramatra slowed down the game for Virtus.pro, and with that mitigation for Vistola, it freed up the rest of the team to have more input in other areas. They weren't as caught up with how do we sustain Vistola, how do we heal our tank. It was more about how do we take care of Yubi on the Symmetra, how do we help Jaewoo, how do we help Shockwave, and it just changes the entire dynamic of how Virtus.pro played. So even though you don't even play the Symmetra, they just had a way more impact in how the series turned out.
Yeah, and we even had a couple of those really great POVs as well on JWoo specifically, where we could just see this effortless movement, especially on like King's Row towards it, making it such a challenge for them, weaving between those health packs to get to the back line, to deny that presence, and almost putting Twisted Minds on the back foot of where, yes, they're using that TP to go across the map to find their own opportunities, but with JWoo really being just this enigma in the back that nobody's really paying attention to, can just continue to reap these eliminations. We saw 35-4, I think it was, or 34-3. It was unbelievable how much contribution, and especially in that last home stretch where JWoo basically was like Kaokan times 10, and I'm just gonna take control of this fight as best I can.
Yeah, if it wasn't for like the respawn advantage there, obviously,
I know.
Twisted Minds. I mean, he was just farming them, going unchecked. 34-3. Like, what? That's unreal. Someone check his PC. Like, that's actually somewhat inhuman. But of course, they are now officially out of the tournament. Looking back, so much to be proud of for VP, and we will be seeing them again on the big stage for the mid-season championship, as VP is our third team from the region to make it through. Now we just have to find out who's going to come out on top for stage 2 in the EMEA region. Let's talk about our player of the match, though. I feel like we had plenty to choose from, but Simple, my guy, my personal MVP, doing it again. Love to see the look on Kiriko here as well.
Ran it down mid. Just like found themselves in the Virtus.pro backline so often on Kiriko. The amount of just kunais to the face of JWoo as well. Just like, we don't need to play a Tracer to counter JWoo. Like, we'll just have Simple throw some kunai in their face. Look, so you nominated Simple for, a stage 2 MVP, and I think it's well deserved. I think Simple has just been out of his mind this entire stage 2, and obviously a big reason how they came out on top of Virtus.pro here today.